What's going on, everybody? This is Brian Mazik, aka Franchise Play. Gotta tell you about this new app called RotoQL. RotoQL works for users for DraftKings as well as FanDuel, and it does two things primarily. It saves time when you're picking lineups. The second thing that it does is obviously what? It helps you win more. RotoQL is designed to give you the same types of tools that the pros, that the hardcore daily fantasy sports players use to get success. You can get in on RotoQL with a three-day free trial by going to the link right here at the bottom of the screen. RotoQL.com/YouTube. Also, take a look in the description. You need to just click on it as well as some additional information. So let's go ahead and jump into the video. What is going on, people? This is Brian Mazik, aka Franchise Play, and I've normally, well, not normally, but as of late, I've been reserving my dates to publish videos as Monday, Wednesdays, and Fridays, and sometimes Saturdays. But every once in a while, I will do what I call a special report, and that's when something huge within my swim lanes happens to drop. And I would say that the first in-game information about NBA 2K18 qualifies, and it especially qualifies when you consider it is about MyGM and MyLeague, which everybody knows is my thing. So on Thursday, well, I actually got the information on Wednesday, had to hold it until today. On Thursday, there was a developer blog released. I got access to it, as I said, on Wednesday. I wrote up my piece for Forbes, and I put that out to drop simultaneously with the information coming from NBA 2K, as well as probably Operation Sports. And I'm telling you, this developer blog is super long. It's like 9 pages, and it's got almost everything you can think of in it in regards to everything that's coming in MyLeague. So I'm going to kind of go over the article that I wrote for Forbes as we kind of just talk about what's in MyGM and MyLeague. So first and foremost, MyGM is changing like drastically. And so previous years, MyGM and MyLeague have been very similar. You know, it's supposed to be like MyGM. You played MyGM if you just wanted to have this singular situation, or you only wanted to control one team, the roster movement there, and you're trying to balance the budgets, the financial situations, the chemistry. And if I'm being honest, it kind of got a little dry, and I kind of found myself just moving away from that and moving more to MyLeague because I just preferred having more access and more customization and more control over the entire league. And the singular things in MyGM just weren't interesting enough for me to keep going back and doing it. So I believe I must not be the only person that felt that way, because 2K decided to make a really big change with MyGM. It's called the Next Chapter, and now there will be a storyline attached to MyGM that essentially functions a lot like My Career, only instead of controlling just your guy, you're controlling the entire team, the entire organization, and the cutscenes, which will be there, that you have to deal with and navigate through, will come from the perspective of a general manager. So according to the introduction, you're a former player that retired 6 years ago, and now an organization is giving you an opportunity to be a general manager. There's not a lot of information given about the actual story, which I like, and Eric Benish is the man who spearheads the MyGM MyLeague stuff for 2K. He's, to me, one of the best developers for any sports video game team. I mean, there's obviously a bunch of really talented guys, but the way he brings forth his vision for franchise modes with 2K is, to me, second to none. But he doesn't give a lot of information about this mode from the storyline standpoint, because he kind of wants everything to come as a surprise. Now, the one thing I was very happy to read is that this is not like a canned situation where everybody's going to experience the same stuff over and over and over again. Kind of like how My Career used to be, and how it was definitely the year with that Spike Lee did it. It was like you were just kind of like trapped on the journey. This is still, they're telling us that what happens is going to be based totally on the decisions that you make. I don't believe there's going to be any voice in the cutscenes. So because if you can tell when you look at the screens there, you see that it's all pretty much textual based. So I would be surprised if there's any voice. But from what I'm looking at, it sometimes when you don't have voice, it gives more, gives the devs a little bit more places that they can go, because they don't have to worry about carrying these large sound files and having this person's voice captured and that person's voice captured. So I don't necessarily mind reading, and the subtitles are cool for me at that point. But MyGM is getting a story mode, and it's called the Next Chapter, and I am really excited to get into that to see what that's about. It's good to see it separate itself from MyLeague. Not saying it's going to be better or worse, just a different experience, and I'm digging it. Okay, now we also are going to see, I don't know if it's the full new 2017 NBA collective bargaining agreement, but there's a lot of things in it from this new CBA. We got Supermax Contract, so just like the deals that Steph Curry and James Harden signed this past offseason, you'll be able to give your players that. They have raised the amount of the mid-level exception, the rookie scale contracts, the minimum annual salaries have all been raised by 45% to be in alignment with the new CBA. There are also annual increases. So players with bird rights will now be eligible for 8% annual raises, which is consistent with the CBA. Non-bird players are going to get, or will be eligible for 5% annual raises. The maximum salaries, the players will now have new maximum salaries calculated using the actual salary cap. They'll have the over 38 rule. It used to be the over 36 rule, and that wasn't in 2K before, but now it's going to be in 2K. Essentially, players over 38, the teams are now bound to the contract extensions or contract restrictions of signing a player that turns 38 during their contract. The stretch provision which is also new to 2K, is going to be in. So it's when a player is waived using the stretch provision, the team will now be able to will not be able to re-sign or reacquire the player until July 1st of the season where the contract ends. The roster minimums are now moved up. Used to be that you had to have 13 guys on the roster. Now you're going to have 14 guys on the roster. So those of us who create rosters, that'll definitely impact us there. You're also going to see the new timeout rules, where there's like you only get to use 2 timeouts, I think, in the final minute, and there's another rule with it. I forget it exactly, but that's going to be in the game. The new trade deadline date, it used to be the Thursday after the All-Star break. Now it's going to be 10 days before the All-Star break. Players will have early termination options on their contracts. The moratorium period has been added. I'll talk a little bit more about that in a second. There will be two-way contracts, which is kind of giving you a little bit of a heads up or something else that's in the game. The Stepien rule is in as well. So that's pretty cool. So I talked about two-way contracts. So that means what? Yes, the G League is coming to 2K for MyLeague and MyGM. It used to be the D League, and this is one of the things that people were asking for probably most of all was the G League. And unfortunately, though, you will not be able to play the G League games. What you'll be able to do is send guys up and down from the G League to the NBA and back and forth between the real team and the affiliates, and you'll be allowed to watch them develop. There'll be statistics generated for them while they're in the G League. And like I mentioned, you have the two-way contracts. So the two-way contracts basically say you can sign a guy to a two-way and he can spend a maximum of 45 days with the NBA team during the G League season. If he stays there 45 days, he either has to go back to the G League team or he has to be converted into a real NBA player at a minimum contract. So that is crazy realistic, and to have that in the game is going to be crazy. It gives you different things you can do when your guys get injured. Just a whole bunch of different stuff from a roster standpoint. You're also going to have the free agent moratorium in the game. Now that's the week right when free agency starts, where guys can agree to agree verbally to deals before they actually officially sign in the NBA. 2K is going to have that in there, but it's going to be 3 days, as far as 2K time, and that's when you'll be able to. They describe it as kind of weeding out the teams who are not really interested in paying or not really willing to pay maybe what a player is really asking. So it's going to narrow down who's really seriously interested or a serious threat to sign different free agents. So I'm interested to see how that goes. It sounds interesting. One of my favorite, I won't say it's my favorite, but one of my favorite new things that's coming is the international draft prospect stash. And so we've all heard of draft and stash. That's going to be in the game. So now when you're going through the draft process in NBA 2K18 in the offseason, and you're contemplating drafting an international prospect, which has been in the game before, the international prospects have, but now you're going to have to take a look and see how many years will it take before that player is eligible to come over to the NBA, because they may have a buyout or they may not have a buyout because there's an existing contract with their current pro team in whatever country they're coming from. That's a real life situation that teams have to do. Like if you look this year, the Cleveland Cavaliers are going to be getting C.D. Osman, but they drafted him, I believe, 2 years ago. Furkan Korkmaz was a draft and stash player who's coming over to the 76ers. So that's a real deal situation, and it's awesome to have that in the game. I'm hoping, and I haven't got confirmation on this yet, but I'm hoping that if we create draft classes like we were before, we'll be able to make international prospects and give them their own buyout years or their own amount of years that they have to wait before they come in. So I want to make sure that that's going to be customizable too if we create an international prospect. Now, I think this is probably my favorite new thing. And it may not be that much to everybody else, but because I'm also a sports writer for real life sports, this really super appeals to me. There's a new analytics tool, and it's being called the Ultimate Research / Player Scouting Tool, and this works in game. So you can actually take any two data sets and plot them against each other to find outliers. Those are words directly from Eric Benish. So just to give you an example, you can say, I want to pull up all of the stats for players in the league and look at their minutes per game versus their rebounds per game, because I want to see who's grabbing the most rebounds with the minutes that they're given, who's grabbing the least rebounds with the minutes that they're given. You can sort the stats by raw stats, per game stats, 36 minutes per 100 possessions. You can even reduce the data set that you get from a time span from either the last 10 games or the last 20 games. You can maybe look at only home games, only away games. You can look at the current season stats, last season stats, or total career stats. You can also, now this is all in game, you can create charts by setting the items such as salary, age, the height, the wingspan, and more. It's insane. Now, here's one part that really blows my mind. With this tool, you can go into your NBA like when you start MyLeague and you use the Start Today feature. All of that is real data. It's real statistics, right? So from the real NBA, I can run one of these reports and I can essentially pull advanced metrics for real life NBA statistics, and I can do it in the game. It can generate a chart for me in the game based off real statistics. So whether you're using it for the real NBA or your league in NBA 2K18, that tool is just bananas. It's bananas. Next up, we got trading draft rights. So this year, back in the older NBA 2Ks, you couldn't trade a guy that you just drafted while the draft is still in process. You'd have to wait until after the draft. Now you can trade the draft rights to guys during the draft, which I think is really cool. There's also new situations with cap holds and renounce rights. So now you will have cap holds on players who are free agents whose situations basically are not resolved. They haven't signed with anybody or re-signed with you. So that cap hold still counts against your contract until they go somewhere else. But you're also now able to renounce the rights of a player. So if you have a player who is maybe an unrestricted free agent and nobody has signed him, you can renounce his rights, and now you free up that cap space. Now you do forfeit their players' bird rights if they're eligible, but that's something that offers even more flexibility to the whole free agent process. They have improved the draft class generation. That's something really interesting, because I read this the first time and this didn't generate to me at first. Now, I don't know this for a fact. This is something that I'm kind of got to be careful the way I ask, because I know they have to be careful the way they answer. But essentially, they have said that they are improving the way players are generated. So they want to have players will now have more appropriate spread of attributes and tendencies with respect to their given player type. They say our new system allows us to more easily update the generation templates outside of the typical monolithic patch release, meaning we can continue to update this logic all season long based on your feedback. So you can update the way draft classes are generated throughout the season. Okay, so here's my thought. If you can update the way draft classes are generated, say for instance we're looking at a draft class that was generated last year. Just say this was in place for NBA 2K17. Could we see a 6'5" athletic guard who is able to score in bunches and as well as create for his teammates that happens to maybe be from a Pacific Northwest school, that happens to be the #1 prospect, and then maybe very closely behind him there's a #2 prospect who's 6'5", has great instincts, is a pure point guard, can really pass, has really great vision. What I'm getting at is, are they going to be able to create draft classes that are essentially set up where the prospects match the real NBA prospects that are coming into the draft or expected to be coming into the draft that season? Here's the thing. They just don't give them those names, the real names. So I was speaking of Markelle Fultz and Lonzo Ball. So say we're talking about last year's draft class. Could they create Markelle Fultz and Lonzo Ball, have all of their physical attributes, but don't have their name, don't have necessarily the exact school that they go to, but if you really know what you're looking at, you can tell that this is who this is supposed to be, and they'll have the prospects ranked accordingly. So now if you're a draft class creator like Embrace the Pace, all you need to do is to go in and change the names and change the faces, and the ratings thing is already done. And you just need to be able to identify who this person is supposed to be based off your own knowledge of the game. That is something that's totally unconfirmed, but I'm wondering if that's what that means, kind of like an underlie. So we'll see later on if that's what that means. Here's another one of my favorite things that are added: the alternate uniforms for created and relocated teams. Anybody who has created rosters knows, or rebranded teams, I shouldn't say created rosters, rebranded teams and had an expansion team, you weren't given an opportunity to have an alternate uniform. Well, in 2K18 you will have an opportunity to have alternate uniforms. You'll even be able to save the old home or away uniforms that you had, or the ones that you create, and you'll be able to go back to those as maybe at a throwback night in the event that you wanted to have throwback jerseys or multiple jerseys. So I really like that, because with the new NBA franchise, or the new NBA series that I have on my channel now, I rebranded all those teams, but every once in a while the game will automatically have the players go to their alternate uniforms, and those alternate uniforms are the team that I rebranded them from. So I got a team that's supposed to be the Philadelphia Fight jumping up, and they're, you know, wearing alternate Toronto Raptors jerseys. So that should be, you should be able to eliminate that by making alternate uniforms for every single team that you rebrand or create. There's going to be rebranding in existing arenas. So the way it is in 2K17, if you want a new court, you have to create an entire new arena. So say for instance you just rebranded the Staples Center. I mean, you just rebranded the Lakers, right? So you're not necessarily moving the Lakers. The Lakers are you're not necessarily moving the team. The team is going to still play at the Staples Center, but you just wanted to have, you know, a different name of the team and a different court. You can now just customize the court without having to rebrand or create a whole new arena. I also like this a lot. This is new all-star location selection process. So before, I believe the all-star game was always in the same arena every single year. You can play 30 seasons. It's going to be in whatever arena it was in the year that the game came out. Now this year they have a logic system built in on the back end that will balance things like the city prestige, how many years it's been since the city last hosted the All-Star game, how old the franchise is, and some more things, and that'll help generate the host for the All-Star game the following season. There'll be some sort of announcement and presentation that takes place during the off season, and but if you're in MyLeague, you can override it, of course. But you know, that's cool to have the All-Star game go to a different city every year. There's even going to be an option where you can customize the All-Star court floor, and you'll have basically a specific All-Star logo that's on the floor every single year that changes depending on where the location is. I think that's really cool. So for the MyLeague Online fans, now you will be able to customize teams and relocate teams within MyLeague Online. That's something that you could not do before. So you can customize, you know, by creating new identities, new uniforms, arenas, courts, etc. I think, yeah, I was reading this. It was kind of worded a little bit weird, so I didn't know. I wanted to make sure you could rebrand and relocate, but from reading this, it says you can create new identities, uniforms, arenas, and courts, etc. So that should cover everything. So that's something that MyLeague Online people should love. Playoff game reset. So if for whatever reason, you know, somebody drops out of a game, and a result is generated, the league admin can now step in and restart that game, giving players a chance to replay it. But that's only in the playoffs. Here's something that I know that the accessory freaks are gonna love. It's called the player accessory frequency. And so there's guys who wear certain accessories. Maybe it's an arm sleeve, a headband, a knee sleeve, leg sleeve, whatever. But they don't wear it every game. They wear it, you know, sometimes. Now, for all 17 accessory slots, every single player will have a frequency option rating. So for every single accessory, they'll either have a rating of never, rarely, sometimes, often, or always, and that should show off in your MyLeague and MyGM how often is the player wearing this whatever, each and every one of their accessories. So this is also something that's going to go off into Play Now and in My Career. So when you create players, you'll be able to give each one of their accessories that same never, rarely, sometimes, often, or always rating. That's pretty crazy. I'm not a huge accessory person like that, but the level of detail in that is insane. That's pretty cool. And then of course in MyLeague you can edit all of that stuff. So you want to change something, you can. There will be improved searching for created teams and rebrands. So now you'll be able to search by team name, city name, or gamer tag when you're looking for created teams or rebrands with the 2K share option. Also, you'll be able to bookmark your favorite creators. So if you want to bookmark me, because you know I'm doing the Ultimate Legends roster, or if you want to bookmark Embrace the Pace, or the infamous New York, all of the people who create the major content, you can bookmark them and be able to get back to their stuff quicker. They also have implemented the hardship exception. So in the NBA, if you have 4 players that are currently injured and they've missed at least 3 regular season games, or in as far as in NBA 2K, if you're playing a shortened season, if they miss at least 1 week of calendar time, you can get an exception to add another roster spot to your team so that you can have enough players to actually compete. So that's something that probably won't come into play that much, but it's nice to know that it's there. For MyGM and MyLeague, you're also going to get Jump Shot Creator. Now, Jump Shot Creator was already in my career, but now you'll be able to customize every step of every single player's jump shot in the entire league. So you can edit everybody's jump shot in it, whether it's a draft class or if it's a roster that you're changing. You'll be able to go into the player edit screen and basically create their jump shot, and I think that's cool too. Here's something that people are gonna like, especially for my Ultimate Legends roster: the duplicate player picker for fantasy drafts. A lot of people, now I don't know how it's gonna work with created legends, but we'll see. I'm gonna get information on that. I'm actually going to be at 2K next week, so these are questions that I'm going to ask when I'm there for the community team up event. But when you create a classic roster, or when you create a roster that has the classic teams and you do a fantasy draft, if you include like all of the Bulls teams, or if you include several different, you include teams that have the same player, now you're in 2K18, you'll be able to say which version of the guy you want, in case you don't want 2 or 3 versions of the guy running around. I know a lot of people ask me for a no dupes version of the Ultimate Legends roster. I don't know if I'll be able to do that for the Legends roster, because my created legends they may not register as a duplicate. So I don't know if what triggers the duplicate, the duplicate signal. I don't know if what makes a person a duplicate according to the system is their name or something else. Hopefully it's their name, because that means as long as you spell the name correctly, it'll generate as a duplicate, and they should ask you, do you want to have multiple versions of this guy? Hopefully that's the way it goes. If that's the way it goes, then it'll be very easy for me to have a no dupes version of the Ultimate Legends roster. But that in itself is cool. Within MyLeague, I told you this was a long blog. Within MyLeague, you'll also be able to practice plays, which is really good. You'll be able to, go through different sets and things like that within MyLeague. Probably should have been there a long time ago, but this is the first year it'll be in there. Here's another one of my favorite new features. You can now create players within MyLeague. Now, some people might say MyLeague has always had created players in it, but here's the thing. The way it used to be is you had to create all the players you wanted to create, put them in a roster, and you start your MyLeague with that roster. Once you started your MyLeague, you couldn't add anybody else unless you were just doing a draft class. You just couldn't add a created player and make them a free agent. This year, you'll be able to add created players at any time, even mid-season, and dump them right into your MyLeague. That's fire. There's so many things, so much stuff that can be done with that. So many ideas that can be done with that. Is crazy. Now you got the quick edit improvements. So they introduced the quick edit feature last year, and you could edit like player tendencies after the patch. You could edit it, some of the other things. This year they're going a little bit further. You can edit all of the body part durabilities, and you can edit the badges and the different levels of the badges right there from the quick edit screen. In Relocation, now there are 10 new cities that you can relocate franchises to. You can take them to Fort Worth, El Paso, Albuquerque, Tucson, Fresno, Long Beach, Mesa, Virginia Beach, Colorado Springs, and Raleigh. So each one of those cities have like different market sizes, metropolitan income, television homes in the market, and so all of that together creates a different financial challenge for you to make your team successful in those markets. So that's pretty cool. Lastly, we have MyGM slider support. So just like in MyLeague, now you'll be able to adjust different sliders in MyGM. So it's kind of like, you know, you could customize everything in MyLeague. You know, you could change how frequently somebody got injured, you know, the salary cap situation. You could change all of that in MyLeague. Now you'll be able to do a lot of that in MyGM. I don't know specifically what sliders are there, but I do know that is coming. That is all of the information, and clearly that was a lot. But I mean, I can't say enough how just amazed I am at how good to MyGM and MyLeague, especially MyLeague, but this year it should be both, how good those modes are. And they continue to add new layers. This year's feature set isn't quite as mind-blowing as last year's, because last year's gave the expansion and relocation, but they've done so much, and for them still to continue to be striving is just phenomenal, man. And I'm blown away by it. Can't wait to get my hands on MyLeague and MyGM this year. But that's all I got. Like I said, I appreciate you watching this super long video. As always, God bless and peace.